All right, we're live. Hey, how's everybody doing? My name's Toby Lawrence. I'm cinema professor at Missouri Western State University. This is the inaugural journey of our 2021 Gold Friday. Um, we are down here at Mokaska Coffee, 705 Edmund Street. This is our inaugural journey of Have a Cup of Joe with Old St. Joe. We intended to start this series about a year and a half ago, but then, as we all know, COVID happened, so we weren't able to. And in fact, we are so lucky because our first guest, Cole Woodbury, was intended to be our first guest, and we were lucky enough to have him on the show today for our first inaugural journey. That said, a couple of things I wanted to say was that we've got the Old St. Joe team down here with us. This is an Old St. Joe event. You can go to oldstjoe.com and find all of our social medias there. If you missed today's event, perchance, you can go to our YouTube page. Ultimately, here in about a couple days, we'll have it posted up there so you can watch this event at any time if you missed it or if you want to go back and watch it again. You can email me, tlawrence7@missouriwestern.edu if you have any questions. Also, we'll be looking for upcoming guests for future episodes. So if you think you might fit the bill, we're looking for fun, quirky stuff about Old St. Joe, history of St. Joe. Reach out to me and let me know. We'd love to have you on the show if you think you fit the bill. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Cole and let him tell us a little bit about who he is and what he's got for us today. So turn it over to Cole.
Thank you very much, Toby, and thank you all for having me here. I'm honored to be the first guest. I can at least say until you have the next guest that I was the best you ever had. So I am what is known as a deltiologist, and while I love the sound of that because it sounds like I have a college degree in some sort of field of science, all that means is that I collect old postcards. And I started collecting postcards as a young kid just because my grandparents traveled the world. But as a young adult, I found postcards of St. Joseph, and I was so excited to get to see things that I never got to see. I always loved history, so the old postcards were a great representation of those things that I never got to see. Quite honestly, I thought when I started, I'd collect all 50 or so that existed and I'd be done. I had no idea when I started that it would be as vast as it is, nor did I believe or even anticipate that it would turn into a part-time job and then an ultimate career in dealing in antique postcards, and that's what I do. But most people are familiar with postcards, but postcards actually started back in 1874 in the United States. They started a little bit earlier in Europe. But they were not very exciting. They weren't what you think of as a souvenir postcard where you have a picture of some place that you visited and you've sent that back to family. The earliest postcards were basically business reply cards. They were not very attractive. They were basically just telling some business person, we've credited your account with $3 or something. They were pretty nondescript. This is an example of one. But another use that early postcards began to get used for was salesman's calling cards. So here's a salesman's calling card for the Battery-All Shoe Company. So they get a little more creative. Typically they have some artwork on them or a product, things like that. So they get a little more interesting. Still not what you're used to when you find a postcard or think of a postcard. But they got pretty creative with some of those salesman's calling cards. This is for the Comb Printing Company, and it shows this burro with this little basket on. And if you open up the basket and pull out the little card that's inside, if I can get it out, it's just a little calling card for the Comb Printing Company telling you which salesman is going to come through and talk to you at a certain time. They're just looking for a way to get your order is all. But that's just a little bit of a creative way that they did something different to catch your eye. But postcarding, I always try to get people to understand that when postcarding hit its golden years, which was from 1898 to about 1918, postcarding exploded. It was a national and a world phenomenon. It was basically the social media of its day. And what started all that, what created it, making it such, was two things. Or one thing, actually. But prior to 1907, the only thing you could put on the back of a postcard was the address. So if there was a picture on the front, you had to write something all over the front of it if you wanted to send a message. It was not until after 1907 that you could divide that back and have a message and an address. And this card shows these were sent from the same person to the same person a year apart. And it shows this fabulous calligraphy, and you can just see how much they improved in a year's time. These are both just Thanksgiving postcards being sent to some individual. But it's a great example of that earlier undivided back and that divided back style. Once that divided back started, everything broke loose. People started collecting postcards, sending postcards. It was cheap correspondence. You could buy them for less than a penny. It cost a penny to ship them anywhere. So it was very easy to do, and it was a great way. We had 3 mail deliveries in those days, so it was easy to send a message to somebody and said, I'll see you at 2 o'clock this afternoon. And they would actually get it before you showed up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You might not get it for a week now, but that's the way we are. But you start to get an idea, and I love these overviews of St. Joe because you get this glimpse of what St. Joseph was like and how full the downtown area was. This is about 1925, 1930, and you just see this congestion of buildings from the air. This one dates from the 1950s, and it's kind of dark, but it still shows just this massive congestion of buildings in downtown. The loss of properties downtown didn't really start until urban renewal in the late 60s, early 70s. Parking was always an issue, so empty lots started showing up for parking and everything. We started to lose a lot of our buildings. When urban renewal hit in the early 70s, we lost more than 250 buildings downtown.
Cole, can you tilt that one up just a little bit for the camera?
It's kind of dark, so it's hard to see.
Yeah, it is. I'm just wondering if we can maybe just get a little tiny zoom in a little bit on it and just see if we can just capture a little bit of it.
It's taken from the south looking to the north.
Yeah, wow, that is something. That's pretty neat.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's fun. It's a little dark, like you said.
It's a dark image. This is a little bit different. This is a real photograph postcard. Now, in the early days of postcarding, anybody who had a camera could make their own postcards. You could either develop it yourself or you could have it professionally printed. This one's a professionally done one. But then this was taken off of City Hall on Frederick Avenue looking to the west, down Frederick, towards downtown. And it's significant in the sense that City Hall was new at the time. This is late 20s. City Hall was completed in 1929. And it just shows some of the buildings along Frederick Avenue that are no longer present. And that's, for me, that's what postcarding has always been about. It's a way for me to get to see what I never got to see. But during those early days of postcarding, publishers and producers of postcards would do anything to try to make something different to catch your eye and get you to buy their product. So this is another view of downtown, but it's actually printed on aluminum. They did them on copper. They did them on anything that they could think, leather, that would catch a possible buyer's eye and make a sale.
What's the backside look like?
This is an undivided back one, so this is pre-1907, but it's never been written on, and actually you can.
How would you write on them?
You actually can write on them. I've had some that are all written on.
So in the old days, how would they write on them? Would they
pencil, and these typically were pencil, but you could do it with an ink pen. It would typically slide, not a fountain pen typically.
What a fountain pen would actually stay on there?
I think it would slide off or smear off, but the pencil would actually leave an impression.
Wow.
And so you could actually read it in reverse on the front of the card sometimes because they were so thin. This is another overview of St. Joseph. This is looking from the top of the Corby building downtown, which is the tallest building downtown, looking to the west. And I love it because you can see the Missouri River and how it used to meander and wander over towards Wathena and around the airport. But just look at the concentration of buildings. And other than Commerce Bank down here in the foreground, every other building that you see in that picture is gone. There are a couple, but most of those are gone. That's where the Civic Arena is today, the hotel, the parking lots, things like that. Even postcards that are produced today, I collect and look for, but they're really not that interesting to me until something within them changes. Because then it becomes that history, that little snapshot of history. This is the south end of town, so this is looking towards the stockyards. You can see the smokestacks for the packing houses and everything. That was a huge industry in St. Joseph, more than 6,000 employees within the packing houses. This is our old Union Station, our railroad depot. This was on South 6th Street. If Mitchell Avenue were to come through to 6th Street, that would be where this building stood. It's hard to imagine 200 trains a day coming in and out of St. Joe at that time. That building was demolished in the early 1960s, so I never even got to see it. We're going to kind of go through a little bit of downtown just because there's a huge concentration of postcards for downtown area because that's where all the central business district was. This is the original City Hall. Actually, it was the second City Hall built in St. Joseph. The first one was just a wood frame building. But if you know downtown and you know where the empty now hotel is along the riverfront, It used to be a Holiday Inn, and then it was a Red Lion. That's where this stood. This was the center of the Market Square area. So the city offices were on the second floor, and the outside area, this was a city market where farmers would bring in their produce and sell it. Just a block to the east of that city market was the Apple Market. So if you were to get off from 229 onto Edmond Avenue or Edmond Street downtown at 4th, this would be the view you would have to the north. So the hotel would be right along in here in this block. Everything you see in this for blocks, other than this building all the way at the top, are all gone today. This is the American Electric building, which is now New Loft Apartments. A little plug. Downtown, we are on Edmond Street at 5th. This Orpheum Theater that you see here is now a city parking lot. The food kitchen would be here on the right, where it used to, on your left, where it used to be. But that Orpheum Theater is a fascinating building. It's hard to imagine that you couldn't probably walk 2 blocks anywhere downtown without running into a theater. They were just everywhere. They were very, very popular. When they started, this was the Orpheum, so this is the corner of 5th and Edmond Street. Here's a view of the same theater at the entrance, lit up at night. Beautiful little leaded glass dome over the ticket taker inside there. And this is an interior view of what the Orpheum looked like. And it was a true theater. Those old movies didn't have sound to them, so you had to have an orchestra or at least a piano or somebody there making music to go along with the film. That building was torn down in the 1960s and replaced with the parking lot that sits there today. Directly across the street to the south and west, we have what was known as the Corby Building. But I like this image because it's an illustration of how you can't always believe everything that you see on a postcard. You notice that you have this view with the streetcar out there and everything, but if you look over on the other side, you can see these telephone poles, and there's no wires on them. Well, they were there when they took the picture, but when they printed it, somebody had to decide what colors to make this image, and so they printed all that and did all that coloring by hand. Nobody wanted to draw in those telephone wires, so they just left them blank. Sometimes they'll take the telephone poles out completely. So you can't always believe everything that you see on a postcard. This is Edmond Street looking to the east from 6th. So this building on right here would be where the ground round is today. The old post office tower at 8th Street in the background.
So where would I think? I guess I don't think it's 6th Street. Never mind.
Yeah, Mokaska would be on down the street in this next block.
Yeah, right.
But that post office building is where our present day downtown post office is. But this is what it originally looked like. This was built in the 1870s. It was torn down in the 1930s and replaced with the very Art Deco or post office that we have downtown today.
You know, it'd be fun to see sometimes if you ever actually laid it out on a big spread. I don't know, maybe if you've ever done this. It would be to see perhaps the whole city laid out in postcards.
It'd be interesting. I've never done it that way. I've done it, then and now, kind of fade into what the same view is today.
But I mean, literally take a map of the city and just put every postcard where.
It's it'd be a big spread. But
it would be a big spread, but that'd be a fun project. Maybe.
It really would. Or some way to make it video-wise that you could kind of zoom in on it and walk your way through.
Maybe it's something we should look to do. That might be fun. Let's
anything we could do would be fun.
Let's explore that.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
Now downtown, there's been a lot going on in the last few years downtown. There's been more activity going on downtown in the last few years than I've seen in my entire lifetime. Most of my early memories of downtown were during urban renewal when everything was being torn down. And this was one of those buildings that was torn down. This is at the corner of 8th and Felix Streets. It's where Mosaic just built the new parking structure. This is the building where Frederick used to come to Felix at 8th Street. And this was a building that during urban renewal they said was structurally unsound and needed to come down. But when they brought in the wrecking ball to try to knock a hole through the wall, it just kept bouncing off the building. It could not knock a hole in the wall. So they knocked a hole through the ceiling, and they set a full-size bulldozer in on the top floor and pushed that building out one floor at a time. But it was structurally unsound, according to engineers, and needed to come down. One of the big things that's made St. Joseph downtown kind of having a resurgence lately is this building, which is the German-American Bank building. It's today what Mosaic spent $20 million renovating for their offices, and it's fabulous. It's a wonderful building. It's one of our Harvey Ellis design structures in St. Joseph. Very, very fortunate to still have it with us. This is at the corner of 7th and Felix Street. This is on Felix looking west across 6th Street. So we have what used to be Shooters, or the Plymouth Clothing Company. They're looking towards the river. These buildings, both on the left and on the right in the foreground, are all gone today. Pretty much the same view looking west down Felix Street. You can see the Corby building in the background. You can see here where somebody used it, Block's Clothing Company, which is right here on the 6th Street corner, used it as an advertisement. Postcards were often used as an advertising venue. You could tell them that their order was in. You could let them know that you had new stock in store for them to come view. This is 5th Street, looking north towards Francis. So in the background, you have the Hotel Rubidoux. In the foreground, though, we had the Renier and Shoup Crockery Company. And if you look closely, I don't know how well they can see it, but there's all these little white circles around the windows and doors.
Can you punch in, KJ?
I may hold it up for you a little bit. But that was 1,141 plates that were attached to the front of the building. They sold china, Haviland, Red Wing, plates, dishes, restaurantware. So that was their way of advertising what they sold inside the building. They literally, don't ask me how they stuck them on the building, but they literally stuck them to the building. Everything you see in that image today is gone. Of course, we were looking up the street at the Hotel Rubidoux, and this is the hotel. It's built in 1908. It was imploded in 1976.
Wow.
I can remember this as a kid. I was 12 years old or so when that came down.
Did you get to see it?
They ushered everybody out of downtown, so you really couldn't see it. But there was video taken of it. And you remember the old Miller beer commercials where when the job is done, it's Miller time?
Right.
For a short time after that, it showed up on a Miller beer commercial. Where it was, when the job is done and the building come down, it's Miller time. Well, they didn't own the rights to the footage, so they had to pull the commercial. But yeah, there's a number of photos of it taken down as it came down in stages. It was imploded, literally, where they set detonation charges and imploded the building in on itself. This is an interior view of the lobby. This was St. Joseph's largest hotel. It was 250 rooms. Today, that's where the Rubidoux Center is downtown. So if you know where, what is that? What's the bank there now?
Is it the U.S. Bank?
U.S. Bank.
U.S. Bank.
I know it by all the other names.
Yeah, sure. So. Right.
This is kind of a little fun card. This is out of the 1920s, 1930s. But this is the Jerome Hotel, which was right across the street from the Hotel Rubidoux. But this is what you call a quick correspondence card. So you're having such a grand time in St. Joseph. You don't have time to write a note, so you just check off some of the things, some of the boxes. Whether you're sending it to the wife, children, sweetie, folks. How are you? I am enjoying, happy, lonesome. I spend evenings talking business, making whoopee, dancing.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, you just check the boxes. It was just easier. You were too busy in St. Joseph having a good time. This is a really unusual card. This was.
This isn't the Nestle, is it?
No, not. That's my last card.
Okay.
But this is an unusual card. This is on the mezzanine level of the Hotel Rubidoux was a tea room, and so it was a Japanese-inspired tea room. And so this is a menu. It shows a view of the tea room inside the Hotel Rubidoux, but it shows what you got for a dinner of 75 cents.
Wow.
And it was steak and roast beef and salad, potatoes and apple pie and vanilla ice cream. But it's just an unusual card. It's the only one of those I've ever
That's
encountered,
amazing.
so it's fun. This card, just another view of downtown unless you kind of know the history. So this is the Hotel Rubidoux's on this side. We're looking south down 5th Street, so there's the Corby building in the background. But if you've ever heard the story about Lloyd Warner, Lloyd Warner was a black man that had been accused of raping a white woman in St. Joseph. He was taken out of the courthouse and hanged. This is the tree from which he was hanged.
Oh my God.
Now that's enough of a story, but this is a good illustration of how you cannot imagine, you cannot come up with a thing that has not been put on a postcard. And this is not as gruesome as it could be, but this is a real photo postcard of the next day showing the tree where Lloyd Warner was hanged. And here's this crowd of people that the photographer talked into standing around this
Oh my
and
God.
posing for, smiling. There's a little boy up in the tree who's holding onto the rope so that you
Oh
can
my
see it
God.
for the photographer. It's horrifying, but it's not unusual. It's rare, but it's not unusual to find postcards where the victim is still hanging there. Now, who's going to make a postcard of that and send that to friends or family? But they did.
Oh my gosh.
It's just horrifying. This is 1933 when this took place. But it's just a piece of St. Joseph's history, and not a great piece of our history, not one of our shining moments,
No.
but it's represented on postcards. So this is Francis Street at the 6th. We have the old Light and Power building on this side, which is now offices. This was the Toodle-Lemon Bank, which is now gone. It's a parking lot. The Angry Swede is in between here, if you're familiar with downtown and the Angry Swede. This is kind of a fun downtown view. This is South 6th Street, but I love it. I always liked it because of the crowd of people that are standing out in the street. I mean, you never see this kind of people standing out anywhere in downtown St. Joseph, so it's kind of fun. But these were people who were listening to a radio broadcast of our local baseball team that was away, and they were standing out in the streets listening to it. Go ahead.
I was to say, Cole. So we've got a viewer out there, Joe Robinson. He says his grandparents used to own a business in St. Joseph, Missouri, and I've got a message out to him right now asking which business.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting to see if we're gonna get a response. So
It'd be fun if I had that image with me.
yeah, Joe, if you're still watching us, if you're still with us, let us type in and let us know which business your grandparents used to own, and see if maybe Cole's got it with him. We'll pop it up here.
Or if I have it elsewhere, we can get it.
Yeah, we can get it to you. Like I said, I think I put it here in the chat, but if you need to reach out to me, you can come over here, Justin, a little bit. Thanks. If you need to reach out to me, tlawrence7 at missouriwestern.edu. Again, this is the Old St. Joe team hosting Have a Cup of Joe with Old St. Joe. And I do need at this point to give a shout out to our wonderful sponsor. Go ahead and zoom in on this. This is one of the official Mokaska coffee cups. We are down at Mokaska Coffee, 705 Edmond Street. They're such a wonderful bunch. They roast their own coffee, and just a great place downtown. So you should come down and have a cup. And they've got a bunch of great snacks and great people that work here. And this is where we're doing our Gold Fridays with Old St. Joe. Have a cup of Joe with Old St. Joe. And let's see here. Let's see if he's responded. So no response from Joe yet. I guess we'll jump back into our program for now. But if Joe does respond, we're going to hopefully see what we got. And if not, we'll send something out. Joe, you can reach out to us. And also oldstjoe.com. You can find us there in all of our social medias. So on with the show.
Okay. Well, when I first ran across an old postcard of St. Joseph, it was the old auditorium. It was not this particular card, but another view of the old city auditorium. And I remembered this building as a kid because we used to go watch the Harlem Globetrotters play. Every Friday they had wrestling. They had the Lipizzan Stallions were there, that sort of thing. And I remember that as a kid. And it was about the time in the early 80s that this was being torn down that I found a postcard of it. And that's what got me started on collecting cards of St. Joe. Now this is an interesting, again, I mentioned that anybody who had a camera could take a real photo postcard. These are amateur shots taken by probably the business owner of this. This is on St. Joseph Avenue. I think it's 3110, I can't read it, 21 or 3110. 2110 St. Joseph Avenue. This was the Vassar and Moscow Grocery Company. But here's an exterior view of it. And probably 10 or 15 years later, I found an interior view of the same business. Unusual to find the insides and outsides of buildings and businesses like that, but if you've been doing it long enough, eventually you do come across some of them. So they're great fun. The nice thing about these real photos is they're so detailed. If they're good images, you can take a magnifying glass over it. You can read the product labels off the packages and things, and it's a lot of fun. It's a great glimpse of what small, every few blocks in St. Joseph had a grocer and a laundry and a pharmacy. Keeping on St. Joseph Avenue for a little bit, this is a fun one. If you're familiar with where the first ward house is at Grand Avenue and St. Joseph Avenue, this is the building. Today it's only a one-story building, but originally it was a 2.5-story building. That building was taken down to its one-story configuration in the 1950s because the Getz family bought the old Pony Express stables, and this brick in this building was the same era and matched the brick needed for the Pony Express stables to do some work on it. So they bought this building, tore off the upper floors, and used the brick on the Pony Express stables. This is a really unusual card. This is an interior view of the First Ward House. So here you have the bar and everything. Saloon interiors and just interiors in general are usually tough to find because photography being what it wasn't easy to take interior views. But it's just a great, great image. On up the street at Highland Avenue and St.Joseph Avenue, where Burger King is today, was the Streetcar Bus Barns. They were only torn down a few years ago when they built the Burger King. But this is where the streetcars and trolleys were housed. There was two buildings like this in town. One was south end and one was on the north end. Streetcars, I've got a number of different fabulous views of streetcars in St. Joseph. This is a small little open-sided streetcar, and you'll notice the sign says Frederick Avenue and Union Depot. This is literally taken on Frederick Avenue at about 25th, 26th Street, about where Fairleigh Station Post Office is today. Signage on the front for probably an event down at Lake Contrary. But streetcars had their mishaps as well. This is the Masseny Street streetcar flipped over into a ditch somewhere.
Oh, wow.
Have no idea what the story was on that, how it happened or why it happened, or how they got it back out. But makes for a great image, and you can see the Masseny Street on the front of the trolley there. Of course, the street railway workers had their own company band. So here we have the Street Railway Workers Employees Band. This is taken literally in front of a streetcar where they've got the side curtains pulled down. Just a wonderful image. So nice and crystal clear.
So, Cole, question for you,
Yes.
just not to stop you, but out of curiosity, so do you ever go traveling with the collection in the United States or points beyond? Do you ever, is there like a yearly event perhaps or something that you do?
There's
where you...
many trips that I go on for postcards. Now, not necessarily because of St. Joe,
But
I do. I mean, there's literally postcard shows going on all the time. COVID put a stop to a lot of them for a while.
Right.
There is one coming up next week that is my favorite of the year, which is in Wichita, and it's a week-long event, and it's my favorite. I always say it's like a family reunion where you actually enjoy seeing the family,
right?
But it's a lot of fun.
So, are you booked out to go to that? Are you going to be able to attend?
I have not been able to. I'm not sure what my agenda is for this next week because of some things I've got going on.
Sure.
And there's, I think the last show I was at this year was in April, so it's just been a hard year for me.
So how was that though?
It was good. I mean, it was really good.
Refreshing.
Yeah, it was, and this is where I find these things. I mean, been doing it long enough, 30 some years of collecting, that actually other dealers find them for me. They'll find something unique, St. Joe, and they'll set it aside for me, or they'll get a hold of me and let me know.
That's fantastic.
And it's great.
Wow.
I mean, connections. It's like anything else. Those connections are where you make and find things and get things, and quite honestly, the best part about hobby of postcard collecting is the people that you meet and everything. They're a great bunch of people. Collectors are an odd bunch anyway, and I'm the first to admit that, but it's fun, and so it's great. The Wichita show, it's a weekend show, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but dealers set up in one particular hotel all week long, so everybody's running from room to room, buying and shopping cards out of everybody's hotel room.
I mean, but it just seems like such a what you do is such a fascinating piece of the puzzle across the board for anybody that's a historian, and whether it's St. Joe or wherever.
It's true, but because of what I collect and because people hear my talks, you would think that most people collect like their hometown or genealogy or things like that. I tell you, I've got collectors as a dealer for the strangest things you've ever heard of. Any postcard that has a birthday cake on it with candles, as long as the candles are lit. Dust pans, brooms. Probably the weirdest one I ever got was at a show. A guy asked me if I had real photo postcards of cows standing in water with their heads turned to the left.
Wow.
I mean, no idea rhyme or reason what gets people started on some of these things, but
I mean, thinking of like St. Joseph in particular, obviously, we have such a rich history here to begin with. and if there was a historian or something that, or a student perhaps was working on a project about a specific thing of history, you might actually hold the missing piece to the puzzle of solving something because of maybe somebody was in a photograph, or because the detail, like when you're going through these postcards, you know every little detail. Like the one, for instance, with the company where they sold to China, the fact that you knew that the outside they had the pieces of China. I mean, that level of detail is such an amazing thing to know, and the fact that we're able to like send. I feel like we could send this information out, and now for better or for worse, now people may be knocking on your door.
That's okay.
But that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Because yeah, and then I don't know. I just think that's fascinating. I'm so excited that you've been able to be with us today, be a part of this thing.
That's fun.
Let's check in on our time.
Now
Okay, so
okay?
we're good on time.
Okay.
Let's jump through some more. Let's keep going. This is
St.
great.
Joseph Avenue. If you're familiar with where St. Joseph Avenue Antiques is today, Todd Perkins, give you a little plug there, Todd. This is his business. His antique shop sits right here, and this is his body shop, and then he's got like a storefront here. But this is his place down on St. Joseph Avenue. Another interior view, and this is literally what's the address where we are here at Mokaska?
705 Edmund Street.
Well, this is 711 Edmund Street. This is the interior view of the Budweiser bar, and it is absolutely crystal clear. With a magnifying glass, you can read the labels of the bottles on the back of the bar. It's just an absolutely incredible image, and that's the only one of that I have ever seen. A lot of these real photo cards are oftentimes one of a kind. Plus, it's 100+ years later, so you can only imagine how few exist. This is a barbershop. This was Shady's Barbershop. They were on 5th Street between Francis and Felix. But I love it. Notice the spittoons down the middle of the floor.
How do you spell this?
There.
Shady's?
Shady's, S-H-A-D-Y, apostrophe S.
Shady's Barbershop.
The barbershops, I've got a number of different interior views of barbershops here in town. This one was on, let me look at the back to get the address, 717 Edmund Street. And this one was literally, you could come out on Edmund Street, or you could come out on 7th Street. It was an L-shaped sort of entry on either side, but it was a huge barbershop.
Are you hiding one for this place in that box?
I wish I did. Actually, I have. I didn't think about it, unfortunately, but I do have a view of Mokaska's the plant. Now, this is unusual. It's actually not in St. Joseph, but it was owned by the Hunt brothers, who were from St. Joseph. It was actually over on the north side of Wathena, Kansas. But it was the Big Red Apple. This was actually a building, and it was a restaurant at the time, and just a great little odd piece of roadside history that's related to St. Joseph. I'm going to go through some of these rather quickly so we can get to some of the better ones at the back.
Sure.
This is the Bell Highway. So if you know where U.S. Bank is on the Bell Highway,
Oh yeah.
that was I think his first name, Clarkey's. This was the Edgewood. Clarkey's was a roadhouse, nightclub, lounge, bar, gambling joint. But it was extremely popular in the 40s and 50s, and it was Colony House Furniture for a while before they moved out to where they are. This is a nice view of the First Presbyterian Church downtown, but I love this view because it shows what life was kind of like downtown at the time, where you lived downtown, you walked to the businesses, you walked to church. We weren't near as spread out as we are today, and it's just kind of this idyllic life looking at downtown at the time. Churches are well represented on postcards in St. Joe. This is Cathedral on North 10th Street. Building's still there. It's been altered and changed a bit, but it's thankfully still with us. Lots of smaller churches. Just another one that's a little more unusual is Temple St.Joseph, which is our last remaining Jewish synagogue in St. Joseph. They're at 17th and Felix. It's a beautiful, beautiful building, beautiful on the inside. This is the Convent of the Sacred Heart. When you talk to people about losses in St. Joseph, the things that always come to mind are Lake and Trary, Hotel Roubidoux, Market Square, and Convent of the Sacred Heart. Right. This is where Convent of the Sacred Heart was at 12th and Angelique. So if you know where Oak Ridge Apartments is today, on just off Massany and 12th Street, that's where this building stood.
Now, aren't if memory serves, isn't there pieces of the Sacred Heart are in Roubidoux?
There are pieces in Roubidoux Row.
Right. The
entrance gate that was over the entrance stairs on the street is actually on the west side of LeBlanc High School as an entrance. But yeah, there's one of the altars, a lot of photographs, a lot of the history, some stained glass windows that were out of the chapel are actually in Rubidoux Row, so I encourage you all to go see that. You know, this is October. Mount Mora Cemetery is having their Voices of the Past tour coming up.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
this is the original entrance on Mount Mora Road into Mount Mora Cemetery. Just a fascinating history.
Hopefully we can get that on our books for 22.
It's an amazing
to travel and do a live stream follow. That'd be so
They do
fun.
an amazing job up there. This is a roll photograph postcard, but it shows an event that took place in St. Joseph. This is North 2nd Street after a fire at the Endebrock Trunk Company warehouse.
Wow.
Obviously, if you look at it, you know exactly what time of year it took place because the building's absolutely frozen over in stalactites and ice.
Wow.
But that building burned, and this was the attempt at trying to put it out. Now, prior to Kodak, when they first came out with their cameras, took a round picture, and that's what this is. It printed it out on a postcard back, but it's a round image. But this is the Moss home, so this is where Barbossa's was downtown.
Okay.
So, but this is sent from Mrs. Moss to their daughter away at school, talking to her about her father and Dad misses you, that sort of thing. But it was literally just a snapshot of the family home. Interior view of a soda fountain downtown. This is at the corner of 8th and Edmond, Pollitt's Confectionery. So this was a soda fountain. You didn't buy a soda. You had to go in and buy a soda where they made it for you. They added the syrup and then the carbonation, and you drank it there. Now, this part of this is still here. This building on this side is the Loft on 4th Street now, and this building is no longer there. It's a parking lot, but this was the Noise Norman Shoe Company. And this was, for years, the sheltered workshop that it was converted into loft apartments. This is, again, another salesman's calling card, but it's for the Richardson Dry Goods Company. This is the American Electric building that was just recently turned into Lost downtown. If you've not been in there and seen them, they're spectacular. They did a wonderful job on this building. It's a huge, huge building, so it's nice to see it converted into an alternate use. Chase Candy Company is still with us today, but this is their one of their early homes. The building was on the Market Square area. It's gone today, but this was they were originally a cigar company and a mercantile company, but they made their own candies, and that became a branch of the business that took off. This is another one of those salesman's calling cards, but this one's for G.W. Chase and Company, and it shows the salesman coming into a city. Here, of course, he has somebody else toting his bags for him. And like I mentioned, anything and everything you can imagine was put on a postcard. This is an advertising card this is Mitchell Street at 20th, but it's an advertising card for the construction company that did the asphalt in the streets. So, and if that's not boring enough, here you go, where they've come back and they've dug up potholes in the street. So, but it's all identified as St. Joseph, and it just is a great illustration of some of the crazy things that you'll find on postcards. You know, just like today, where we're always trying to advertise and make our business stand out and be unique, this is the Transit Market in South End on King Hill Avenue. And I love the advertisement in the window. It says, "Don't go any other place to get skinned. Come in here." So it's skinned being a euphemism for being cheated. And here they have it as their advertisement in the window. If you want to get your meat taken care of, come in here. This is a great roadside gas station. This is on Highway 6. It's just east of the city limits at the time. So this is at the corner of Woodbine and Frederick Avenue, where Reed Chevrolet now has their little corner lot where they have their trucks. This is the gas station and the little motel cabins that used to stand on that corner. Just a great, great piece of roadside history. Used to have a local photographer who was an amateur photographer, did a ton of postcards, and he didn't sell them, he traded them with other amateur photographers around the country. So I always end up finding them elsewhere. But this is Noyes Boulevard at Farron, and this is the grading of the street. So this is Noyes Boulevard at Farron, and they literally have a steam tractor out there grading the street. And he lived just 2 blocks away, so it was just something in his neighborhood he made a postcard of. I mentioned earlier St. Joseph had its own, I guess you'd call it, wasn't pro league, but it was the next step down, whatever they call that. You can tell I'm a baseball fan. But this was the St. Joseph Drummers, which was our local team. Drummers being a slang word for a salesman, traveling salesman. So that was our local team's name because we were such a mercantile town. Special events took place. This was the explosion at Armor Packing Company in the 1930s. And this is just, I have several different views. And typically you find them like this, they're unidentified, but you can figure out where they are. This was the explosion that took place down at Armor's Packing Company. Horse-drawn delivery wagons are always a hot topic on real photo postcards. Collectors that like just Americana don't care where they're from. Of course, I prefer them if they're from St. Joseph, but this is St. Joseph Ice Manufacturing Company. I've owned this for probably 30 years, and at the time I bought it, I think I gave $20 for it, and I quickly erased the price off of it because I didn't want anybody to know I ever paid $20 for a postcard. I can tell you right now I paid a lot more than that for some, but at the time that was the deal. There's probably more postcards at Crook Park than any other subject in St. Joseph, so I just have a few to show you. This is the original entrance into Crook Park. It was a block to the south on Crook Park Place, from where the entrance is to the park today. Used to have these crenellated entrance gates. The Moila Shriners here in St. Joseph used to have camels that they would use for parades and things, and so they kept them at Crook Park and had them on display. And they were there until a man was bitten in the top of the head and he later died of an infection. After that, They moved the camels out of the park. But at one point, one of the camels' names was Moila. And somehow, don't ask me who, she developed a taste for Getz beer, which was one of our local breweries. And if you look closely under magnifying glass, you can actually see the bottle of beer there, and it reads Getz Country Club beer. And his man is bottle feeding a bottle of beer to the camel.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure PETA would have a thing to say about that today, perhaps. Crook Park again, but this is an amateur real photo postcard. These are called sienna types. They were developed with sunlight, so you actually made the image, you put it in the window, like on a windowsill to develop in the sunlight, and when it got to the point you liked it, you had to go rinse it off and fix it, just like you do a photograph, but they always have this blue tone to them. They're typically not very good pictures because most people are not very good photographers, but that one happens to be a decent, nice one. There's a series of these fold-open postcards, a couple from Crook Park. There's some buildings downtown, the courthouse, things like that. But they're a little harder to find. They're typically not in very good shape, but it's just something a little different. Lake Contrary, can't leave that out. This is 1900, so this is actually a rendering showing what they hoped Lake Contrary would look like. It has the racetrack, which was the main attraction to the park down there, was the racetrack. They did sulky racing, they did horse racing, and then they had the fairgrounds buildings, and then they had these designs for what the park was going to be like. Ultimately, the amusement park was put here, and the Lotus Club was over here. This is the Lotus Club, which was a private club down at the lake, burned in the 1930s. If you were to drive down there today and you kind of come to the lake where you have to turn left or right, turn right, and then almost immediately look to your left, and that's where the Lotus Club would have been. The amusement park, it's hard to imagine that we had such a beautiful amusement park in St. Joseph. I never got to see it. It was gone by the early 60s. But this is the center of the lagoon at the Lake Contrary Amusement Park, and this was the Shoot the Chutes Tower, kind of like the Viking Voyager of Worlds of Fun. You know, you slid down in a boat and hit the water. Probably the two rarest cards of Lake Contrary that were printed in mass quantity are these two postcards. This is the merry-go-round building. It was actually in its own building that housed the merry-go-round because we're in Missouri, so we have the weather.
Right.
So closed in the wintertime, but this is an exterior view of the building and an interior view of the merry-go-round itself. All gone now. There's parts and pieces of it around town still, but it's all gone. But for some reason, these two printed images, they're not real photos, but they are extremely difficult to find. Now, I'm going to get into some strange types of postcards. This is actually a book of matches. And so this is for the Army Air Force's Air Transport Command at Rosecrans Field. So it was literally a book of matches. There's the strike there, the fold. But once you got done with it, it was a postcard. So you could open it up and servicemen could use that. You know, they took it with them. When they used it up, they could write back home. So it's just a little different. This is a
Oh my gosh.
unusual little postcard. And yeah, let me turn it over so you can actually see that it was used and is a postcard. But it's die cut in the shape of a heart.
Get close up on that one, yeah.
The what's it say? The heart of St. Joseph, Missouri. Then you open it up,
Oh.
and it has all these tiny little images of St. Joseph, and most of these images are available on full-size postcards. But it just accordions out and all these little different images of St. Joseph. Get it before it blows away.
Oh my gosh.
But you can imagine the survivability of these things. They just don't survive. So it's unusual to
I mean,
find
the
them.
fact that you found one is
Yeah,
just,
it's,
wow,
that
that's
somebody,
amazing.
you know,
Cared, they just,
unlike
cherished
postcards
it.
today, people don't tend to save them. But in the old days, people had albums that they would fill full of postcards. And so if it weren't for those family albums and saving those things, they wouldn't have
little
survived.
pieces of them.
Yeah, it just flakes away and falls apart. But
Oh my gosh.
that's why some of these cards you don't get out very often.
That's right.
Now, this is an advertising card. Red Top Whiskey, Red Top Rye Whiskey was a product that was made in St. Joe, or not made in St. Joe, but their home offices were in St. Joe. That was the Westheimer family. So this is an advertising card for Red Top Rye Whiskey. And so it has, you know, they were out of Cincinnati, Louisville, Kentucky, and St. Joseph, Missouri. But it shows this mechanical postcard. And so it shows this gentleman. Now, there's a strip missing here. But it shows this very wealthy, well-to-do gentleman, and he's got a nice automobile, and he's well-dressed. And it says, the secret to his success. And then you pull down the tab, and the picture changes into a barrel of Red Top Rye Whiskey. So the secret
my
of his
gosh.
success was evidently Red Top Rye Whiskey.
Wow.
So
we only
just-
knew, right?
Yeah. It's just a neat little mechanical postcard. And again,
That's
they
crazy.
just tend not to survive very well because they are played with so often and opened so often. But that leads us to our last card, which is the one that you mentioned. This is probably the most unusual postcard I have ever encountered of St. Joseph. And I actually have two different versions of this. This one is in better condition than the other one. Again, this was a salesman's calling card. So this is letting, you know, you're sending this out, telling them the types of products that you bought. So this was soft wheat brands and hard wheat brands. And then it was meant to be torn apart and sent back to the company. But on this side, it says, now this was for New Year's, so it says New Year postcard. It says, blow in the hole opposite, and you will see where our famous products are milled. We don't have to blow about our products. Our satisfied customers do that for us. And there's this little hole right there. When you open it up, it's literally a pile of paper. This is for the R.T. Davis Milling Company, which was Aunt Jemima Pancake Flour, Davis Golden Sheaf Flour, Royal Number 10. They had a number of different products. But if you blow in the back of that postcard and pull up at the same time, this pile of paper that you see actually pops up into the shape of the building. It's very difficult to get up and see if I can actually blow in and make it pop up. So when you get it up, it literally has the front doors, the windows. There are wagon loads at the docks on the side so that you can... and this building, by the way, was about where the 229 ramp comes on to Edmond Street downtown at 4th. That's where this building stood. But that's probably the most unusual postcard of St. Joseph as far as the novelty and things that they came up with to try to move their products. So it's just a great, unusual thing. So that's actually the last postcard I brought to show you. Did we ever hear back from our
No.
writer on the...
It doesn't
I
look
would
like
love to see what it is he's looking for.
Yeah.
Because I don't just collect postcards of St. Joe, I collect anything St. Joe. So I have photographs, books, maps, trade cards, pocket mirrors, paperweights, pinback buttons, you name it, advertising signs. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's St. Joe, if it's part of its history, I love it.
Yeah, Joe Robinson. We'll see if he sends me a message later on. We have had some viewers. It looks like we might have had an issue with the Ethernet, so it may have We may have had some stuff dipping. The signal may have been dipping in and out for some folks. To that end, if you were unable to follow us live, this will post to Facebook and also be archived to YouTube, so you can watch this later. Just so excited to have you on board today. This has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your collection with us, Cole. I guess we're in COVID time, so it's elbow bump.
Well, this is just a fraction. So
this is just a fraction. So
thousands and thousands of postcards.
And did you have contact info?
I do.
For anybody you want to maybe tell the folks out there?
Well, you can reach me at my phone number is 816-294-8138. That's my business card. I literally make a living dealing in antique postcards. So I buy, sell, and trade vintage postcards. But all my other information is on the back there. But please reach out to me if you have postcards you have questions about. If you have postcards you want to sell. If you want appraisals, I do that. I do charge for that, but sometimes there's trades that can be worked out. So, but anything postcard, anything St. Joseph history, I love, and I'm always willing to talk and share.
So do you do stamps as well? Or
I do not. Never had an interest in stamps.
It's okay.
Yeah, never did. But
remotely.
Not even remotely, but they do go hand in hand. A lot of ex-stamp dealers are now postcard dealers.
Okay, well, I might have to reach out to you on that because I have a huge stamp collection.
I have friends who are, so I
need an expert.
I can hook you up.
I need an expert because I have stuff, but I don't claim to know what I'm doing.
I can hook you up with that. So.
Like I said, we don't claim to be the experts with Old St. Joe, but we want to facilitate the conversation. Hopefully, that's what we're doing or we're able to do with Old St. Joe. We're really excited. So I guess with that, thanks everybody for tuning in today for Old St. Joe. Have a cup of Joe with Old St. Joe. Sorry, I'm excited. It's our first episode, and we're here to do it. And I guess that's a wrap, as we call it in the business. So see you next time. Thanks, gang.